In 1987, biologists did something that sounds, honestly, kind of insane. They caught the last wild condor left on Earth, every single one, and locked them all in cages. No wild population. Zero. For the first time in maybe a million years, this bird just didn't exist outside of captivity anymore. And somehow, that decision is the exact reason you can still see one flying today.
This is the story of the California condor, North America's largest land bird. We're talking a 9.5-foot wingspan, the kind of thing that casts an actual shadow when it passes overhead. It once soared from California all the way to Florida, up into Western Canada, basically everywhere. And by the early 1980s, it had almost vanished completely. This isn't just a story about a bird going extinct. It's a story about the exact moment humans looked at that and said, nope, not on our watch, and then made years of desperate, sometimes genuinely uncomfortable choices to back that up.
For most of the 20th century, the condor was already in trouble. And not from one big disaster, but death by 1,000 cuts. Lead poisoning from bullet fragments left in animal carcasses, habitat loss, shooting, collisions with power lines, thinning eggshells from pesticide exposure. One by one, the pressures just stacked up.
By 1982, there were 22 California condors left, total, on the entire planet. Let that sink in for a second. 22 birds carrying the entire genetic future of their species on their backs. So biologists made a call that, honestly, split the conservation world right in half. Some argued you never remove the last individuals of a species from the wild. Ever. A captive population isn't really a wild species anymore. And hey, what if there's a disease outbreak in the cages? Or one bad breeding season wipes out the whole plan? Others pushed back hard. The wild just wasn't survivable for condors anymore, not with lead still sitting in the food chain. Leaving them out there wasn't protecting them. It was watching them die slowly and just calling it nature. That's the argument that won out. In 1987, the last wild condor, a male cataloged as AC9, was trapped and brought into captivity. For the first time since before recorded history, there were 0 California condors flying free anywhere on Earth. But here's the part that almost nobody talks about. The thing that made the recovery program actually work wasn't just breeding the birds. It was raising them without letting them fall in love with humans. Condor chicks imprint fast. If a keeper feeds a chick by hand, that chick can grow up thinking it's part human, which is a disaster for a bird you're eventually going to release into a canyon. So the teams built puppets, condor-head puppets, on a person's arm, feeding the chicks so the last thing the chick's brain associates with food and safety is something shaped like its own species, not a human face. It looked absurd. It worked. In 1992, the first captive-bred condors were released back into the wild in California. More followed, into Arizona near the Grand Canyon, into Baja California, eventually into the Pacific Northwest and even Northern California, land the species hadn't nested on in over a century. In 2004, the first wild-hatched chick since the recovery program began finally fledged on its own. No human hands involved at any point in its life. Today, the global population has passed 600 condors. More than 390 of them are flying free in the wild, actually finding mates, laying eggs, raising chicks, doing everything a condor is supposed to do without anyone's help. From 22 to over 600. From 0 wild birds to hundreds of them navigating the same skies their ancestors did. But, and this is the part that keeps biologists up at night, lead poisoning hasn't gone away. It's still one of the leading causes of death for wild condors, decades after the species nearly disappeared because of it. Every bird you see flying free is often still tagged, monitored, sometimes tested for lead levels, because the recovery program never really ended. It just moved from, can we save this species, to can we keep it saved? Somewhere out there right now, there's a condor flying that only exists because a scientist 40 years ago decided a species with 22 members left was still worth all the risk, all the money, all the strange puppet-headed compromises it would take to bring it back. It's not a finished story. It's not a guaranteed happy ending, but it's proof that almost extinct doesn't have to mean extinct if enough people refuse to accept the difference. If you want to see the next story about a species that almost didn't make it, you know what to do.